You're listening to the Chad Hasty Show on demand. Good for you. Now download the KFYO app and listen live weekday afternoons 5 to 7 p.m. Central.
Broadcasting from the great state of Texas, this is the Chad Hasty Show. News and views with a Lone Star perspective. You can sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Or call in at 1-800-687-0790. Now, here's Chad Hasty.
Good evening, Lubbock, Amarillo, Abilene, Wichita Falls, Midland, Odessa, Dallas, Fort Worth, down in Houston, over in El Paso, and of course, anywhere inside or outside the great state of Texas, wherever you may be listening on this Tuesday, February 6th, 2024. Welcome into the Chad Hasty Show. Glad to have you with us today here on the program. We've got a lot of ground to cover, a lot of topics to get into today. It looks like this border bill is all but dead, which, hey, good job, everybody. This is how it's supposed to work. It looks like it may be dead. Now, it could come roaring back at some point. It could take on a different life. But as of right now, at least lawmakers are listening to their constituents, listening to the American people, and waking up and going, this isn't very good. Now, of course, the Democrats will use this as they've already previewed. The Democrats will use this against Republicans, and there's still a chance that there's going to be another type of bill that's similar to this that comes out. We're not saying that it's not ready to declare total victory just yet, but at least Republicans are listening a little bit to the American people and to the constituents, and not just rubber stamping this thing. So we will talk about the latest with the border bill, the terrible, terrible, awful border bill, and what some lawmakers are saying about it. And also, is it time for Mitch McConnell to go? Is it time for him to step away from leadership? If he wants to serve in the Senate, sure, go ahead. If that's what his constituents want, they don't want to primary him. They don't want to get rid of him. They want him to continue to hang out in the Senate. Okay, all right, fine. He doesn't represent me, so okay. But is it time for him to get out of leadership? And then the question is, who do you replace him with? Is there a Republican that you ultimately trust to take over leadership in the Texas Senate, in the U.S. Senate? We'll talk about that on the program today because there are a few names floating around and a few senators also saying it's time for the turtle to go. And so we'll talk about that during the program throughout the show today. Also, we've got some statewide news to talk about, quite a bit of statewide news, some election news as we are getting down to it. We are getting closer and closer to early voting. Early voting beginning in just 14 days. Yeah, 14 days from now, you'll be able to start going to the polls and casting your ballots. We're going to get back to having some guests next week on the show. I'll be out the rest of this week, but we'll have some guests next week on the show. Some last-minute interviews from candidates. And if you're a candidate running for office and we haven't had you on the show yet and you'd like to come on, or maybe you'd like to come on again, send me an email, chad@kfyo.com. That's chad@kfyo.com. And let me know what office you're running for, all the pertinent details, and we'll get you on the program. But we do have some election news to get into today. We also have some education news that we'll be getting into. And then this headline, once hesitant Texas Republicans have united behind Donald Trump again. We'll get to that story out of the Texas Tribune here in a little bit. Want to hear from you today on a variety of issues. You can text in at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. And when you do text in, let us know who you are, what your name is. So you can be a made-up name. That's fine. And where you're listening to us from. You can also call in at 1-800-687-0790. That's 1-800-687-0790. We will visit with Brandon Arnold with the National Taxpayers Union coming up at 6:05 this evening to talk about ESG and the ESG movement that is out there and why you should be concerned about it. So we've got all of that to talk about today. And then your running topic, since I'll be out the rest of the week. You're going to have Steve Evans tomorrow, and then Matt Crow will be here on Thursday, Friday, and then Steve Evans will be back on Monday. I should be back in the studio on Tuesday. If all goes well, if all goes right, with the flight back to Lubbock, then I should be here in the studio on Tuesday. But since this is the last day of the week for me, the question for you guys that we're going to throw out there, since, there's kind of a big game coming up this weekend. The Super Bowl is coming up. Who are you rooting for? Or are you rooting for anybody? Do you care? Do you not care? Who are you rooting for in the Super Bowl? And what is the best Super Bowl snack or food item that you have at your party? What's the ultimate food item that you have at your Super Bowl party? You can text in at 806-680-2790. Nick, for some people, it's a good dip. You don't want a double dip, but a good tip is like the ultimate thing. For others, hot wings, pizza, another big one. Of course, beer. A lot of people like to have beer when they're watching the game. So what for you is the ultimate food at your Super Bowl party? What is it? You can text in at 806-680-2790, and you can get in touch with us and sound off on any of those issues. GOP senators calling for McConnell to step down. Declaring the border bill unadulterated bull. Well, I can't continue that word. Neither did the headline over on Fox. A group of Senate Republicans growing weary of Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell's leadership called for him to step down as they aired their grievances over what they called a dead bipartisan border bill slated for the first floor procedural vote on Wednesday. Senators J.D. Vance out of Ohio, Ted Cruz out of Texas told reporters Tuesday afternoon at a press conference that McConnell should have walked away from the border agreement, which they argue expands Biden's powers and does not fully close the border. Well, we're not committing ourselves to voting for this thing just because we entered into a negotiation. You hear this from some of our leadership. Hopefully they will stop the idea that we committed to supporting whatever came out of the negotiation as pure, unadulterated bull. And from Vance, one of Congress's loudest critics against Ukraine assistance, said, he added, we supported a negotiation to bring common sense border security to the country. We did not agree to a border fig leaf, sent another $61 billion to Ukraine. Again, separate the bills. You want to send money to Ukraine, have a separate bill for them. That's how it should be. It won't happen. But I hate these combining of bills. I don't like it. Cruz, a staunch critic of McConnell since 2013, said the longstanding leader offered no response when he asked him, is there anything we are willing to fight on regarding the closed-door border negotiations that began in December, which Republicans are now determined to tarnish. Quote, everyone here supported a leadership challenge to Mitch McConnell in November, Cruz said. I think a Republican leader should actually lead this conference and should advance the priorities of Republicans. Fox News reached out to McConnell's office for comment. Following the GOP luncheon on Tuesday, McConnell told reporters, I think we can all agree that Senator Cruz is not a fan. Oh, boy, that's leadership right I think we can all agree that Senator Cruz is not a fan of me. And Mitch, wake up! Yeah, no, I think it's time for a little new blood. Senator James Langford out of Oklahoma, the lead Republican negotiator, has been facing pushback from the caucus over the deal that was struck with Senators Chris Murphy and Kirsten Sinema and the Biden administration officials. More than 20 Republicans have already vowed to strike down the bill on Wednesday, arguing they needed adequate time for amendments and further analysis. So you see, they're not saying this is completely dead, folks. They're just saying they're not ready to vote on it tomorrow. Yeah, we may have some amendments. We may need some analysis on it. We're not going to say it's completely dead, but how it is right now, it's not looking good. But it can still come back. And this is something that we have to pay attention to and have to watch for, because there's a very good possibility that once people get into another outrage over something else, once something else pops up in the news, that's when they'll go ahead and start movement on this bill. Once you're distracted, once the pop star is back in the headlines, maybe that's when they pass it. So that way you're distracted by the pop star, and you get the conservative activist on Twitter all in a huff and puff over a pop star and a football player. So that way they're ignoring what's actually happening in Washington, D.C. Don't think it won't happen like that. Don't think there's not a possibility that this thing comes back and is not made much better. They may nip and tuck a few things here and there, but the Democrats, they're not going to give up anything. You think the Democrats are going to give up any ground? No. And the Democrats are very happy. If Republicans shot this down completely, and this is where you have weak Republicans. You have weak-kneed Republicans, and you have Republicans who cannot come up with a message and stick to it. Everything, and what we had was a good deal, and it was endorsed by the Border Patrol, and it was endorsed by this group. Of course, who you're rooting for in the Super Bowl? You can text in 806-680-2790. When we come back, your calls, your text, and more.
The Chad Hasty Show can be heard all over West Texas, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Tune in on News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO in Lubbock, News Talk 940 in Amarillo, News Talk 94.7 and 1470 KYYW in Abilene, and in Wichita Falls on News Talk 96.3 and 1290. The Chad Hasty Show. Make it a part of your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Coming up on the Wednesday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, continuing to look at the fallout after Senate Republicans learned that people don't want a nonsense immigration bill that doesn't do what it says it does. Plus, Clay?
We'll dive right into the continued lawfare and how absolutely insane it is. Plus, it'll be the eve of me giving you the greatest Super Bowl picks of all time. Come hang. Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, tomorrow morning at 11.
All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Appreciate you tuning in today. Hey, I want to give a quick shout out to our good friends over at Coins on Main. Pat Kelly bringing as many years of gold and silver experience to you at Coins on Main there in Lubbock. And they are brand new sponsors here on the Chad Hasty Show. Sponsoring the show there in Lubbock. Locally owned gold and silver dealer now open at 1105 Main Street, just one block west of the Lubbock County Courthouse. Go by and see Pat Kelly's all beautiful gold and silver coins and bars that he's got there at Coins on Main. You're going to be very, very happy with the selection. And starting tomorrow, go by and see the bid board that he'll have up and running at Coins on Main at 1105 Main Street. And again, let's see, he's open Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Other times by appointment. You can call Coins on Main at 806-470-1565. Go by and see Pat Kelly. And those of you in Lubbock, tell him thank you for supporting the show and being part of the program. All right, 806-680-2790. One listener saying not guacamole when it comes to the Super Bowl party. Most common Super Bowl injury is a hand slice from trying to take out the seed by hitting it with a knife. Is that true? Is that the most common at-home Super Bowl injury? I'm thinking at-home Super Bowl injury. Let's see, Mary in Lubbock, have you had any of the candidates? For local elections, we haven't had local election, anyone running for local elections on, just yet, Mary. And I try to give a little bit of space between those who are running, in the primary and then those who are running for local office. We'll probably start having some of the local folks. And by the way, this is open for, those of you in Lubbock and Abilene, Wichita Falls, Amarillo. If you're running for local office, we'll probably start having those folks on in about a week, maybe 2 weeks, to start having them on. I wanted to focus a lot on the primary candidates, but we'll start getting to the local folks pretty soon. We'll get to them. But good question there, Mary. Appreciate you listening. In Lubbock, Linda in Lubbock saying the only way McConnell's going to leave Congress is on a gurney like Feinstein. That's probably true. Which is, again, I know he's making some pretty good money. I know he's made a good little lifestyle out of being in the Senate and everything else. But I got to say, is that really what you want to do until you can't do anything anymore? Is be part of the DC madness? And maybe it's because I haven't been infected. I don't know. But I just look at it and go, I would not. You look at someone like Joe Biden, and you could tell he doesn't have it all together. Mitch McConnell doesn't have it all together. Dianne Feinstein didn't have it all together. Is that really what you want to do at the end? Is that really where you want to be when you have, I don't know, a handful of years left? I'm not trying to be morbid or anything. I don't know. I'd rather be with family on a beach somewhere, not having to stress out about everything happening in Congress. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I haven't been infected yet. And so I'm thinking differently. He wants to hold on to that last grasp of power while he still has it. Let's see, an estimated 50,000 people went to the ER from injuries while sustained while making guacamole in the past 20 years. That doesn't sound like a lot of people, though. In the last 20 years, 50,000 people, and I bet it's gone. I bet a lot of it's like younger millennials and Gen Z and people who, that's from the Florida Law Group website. Okay. I've never had guacamole at a Super Bowl party, so maybe that's just me. McConnell is owned lock, stock, and barrel by China. He's probably owned by a lot of folks. Let's see. Paul in Michigan. Mitch McConnell should have been out of power 10 to 20 years ago. Republicans can't have a leader that bends to the left, is willing to work with them no matter what. Never understood this because the Democrats have full power. They don't give a crap about Republicans think. It's full steam ahead for their agenda. It's very true. It's because the Democrats rally around. You can look at it a couple different ways. One, Democrats are a bunch of sheep, and they're going to fall in line every time. Republicans have disagreements, and disagreements are fine. But when it comes to actually getting something done, when it's time to get something done, get it done. We'll be right back.
The Chad Hasty Show, weekdays 5 to 7 p.m. Sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Veterans deserve to know about the best services available to them. VA's new radio outreach page is a prime source for that information. The page, news.va.gov/outreach/radio, houses public service announcements that educate veterans on a cross-section of topics. That's news.va.gov/outreach/radio.
We live Texas. We breathe Texas. The landmarks, the swagger, and the lore make us who we are. We devour the tastes and the smells of our state. You just might say there's something in the air. So do your part to help protect it. Keep your tires at the correct pressure and avoid idling at drive-thrus. Both help reduce emissions. For tips, visit drivecleantexas.org. Drive Clean Texas. Live and breathe it. Brought to you by TxDOT.
The news and talk of West Texas. News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO. Chad Hasty, talking the news. At the start, middle, and end of your drive home, and when news breaks. This is the Chad Hasty Show.
All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Appreciate you tuning in today. We're talking a little politics, also asking you the ultimate food item that you have at your Super Bowl party. And well, who are you rooting for? You rooting for the Chiefs? You rooting for the 49ers? Now, something that, Nick, you're going to have to be prepared for on Friday, because Matt Crow will be here, and he is a huge 49ers fan. I don't know if you knew that or not, but I mean, he's Mr. San Francisco 49er. He's got, I think he's got a Brock Purdy jersey that he wears around town. He's the only one, really, who has that jersey. And so, he wears that around town. And, I can just imagine that, he is going to be a little unbearable, on Friday. Now, if San Francisco wins, and this is why I'm glad Steve is going to be here Monday, though I will caution this, it's very possible that if San Francisco wins the Super Bowl, Crow will show up during the show, even while Steve's hosting, and just crash the party and want to take things over and talk about how his San Francisco 49ers are great. So just be prepared for that. Texter weighing in with their favorite items for the Super Bowl. As far as food goes, cheddar, cream cheese, sausage balls for Super Bowl snacks. And they say I can actually be okay with either team winning. Yeah, I'm rooting for Kansas City. You know, I'm rooting for Kansas City, but at the same time, I'm not going to be disappointed if San Francisco wins. I know I'm a bad Dallas Cowboys fan for saying that, but I'll be okay. I like Christian McCaffrey. Brock Purdy seems like a good guy. Be fine with him winning a Super Bowl. Let's see. Texture weighing in. Cornyn believes that he's next in line for power after the Turtle. How old is he? Why does Texas keep reelecting him? He's obviously part of the Uniparty. Will follow directly in the footsteps of Mitch. Well, why do Texans keep reelecting Cornyn? Cornyn keeps winning. No one's running against him. No serious candidate, no good candidate has run against Cornyn. No one who has been able to present a good enough campaign to take down Cornyn. And Cornyn does have a lot of support among Republicans in Texas. In fact, there are times where Cornyn's approval numbers are higher than Ted Cruz's among Republicans. So just something to remember on that front. And yeah, John Cornyn wants to be the leader. He wants to be leader. That's for sure. Jed Wines, no one blasting Schumer for sitting on House immigration bill. H.R. 2, it's been on his desk for months. I guess he really isn't interested in immigration legislation that takes billions of our tax money. Go Chiefs. That's from Jerry in Lubbock. Well, listen, if it's not Democrats aren't serious about doing anything with the border. So if the bill is a real border security bill and Chuck Schumer is sitting on it, no one's surprised by that. I mean, that is, that's obvious. I mean, again, this is why if Chuck Schumer has a heavy hand in it, if Chris Murphy, Democrat, has a heavy hand in it, you know it's not going to be good. It's going to be a far left bill. And it's not going to do what many of us are wanting it to do, which is secure the border. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats aren't interested in that. They are fine with the status quo. They're absolutely fine with it. They would prefer for this to keep going. Texter says the day after the Super Bowl should be a holiday. 806-680-2790. Back statewide, not really locally, but statewide. Speaker Dade Phelan defending a Ken Paxton impeachment in a new campaign ad that he's put out there. House Speaker Dade Phelan is using a new ad to tackle head-on a major issue in his primary, Ken Paxton's impeachment. In a direct-to-camera spot, Phelan outlines the alleged misdeeds that led to Paxton's impeachment last year, including the extramarital affair. It says vengeful Paxton is the reason why Donald Trump recently endorsed Phelan's primary challenger. Quote, if Paxton will break an oath to his wife and guide, why would he tell Trump or you the truth? Phelan says in conclusion. Paxton has made Phelan his number one target, leveraged the House his close relationship with Trump to target the speaker in his reelection bid. Trump endorsed Phelan's opponent, David Covey, last week, citing an absolute embarrassment of Paxton's impeachment. Paxton was already starring in a TV ad backing Covey while invoking Trump's previous criticism of Phelan. The new Phelan commercial running on TV and digital platforms in Phelan's Southeast Texas district, according to his campaign. Paxton's campaign argued the ad showed that his re-election campaign was floundering. Well, I didn't know Ken Paxton was on the ballot in HD 21, said Paxton spokesperson Nick Maddox in a statement. It's a bizarre and desperate ad. When you're running ads like this 2 weeks before the early vote, it's a clear sign the speaker's re-election is in trouble. The ad opens with Phelan blunting stating that Paxton, quote, had an affair with a Senate staffer, a reference to the extramarital affair that came up at the impeachment trial. Former chief of staff to the AG testified he confessed to the staff that he had cheated on his wife. Said State Senator Angela Paxton is Paxton's wife, that she warned him it could make him vulnerable to bribery. One of the articles of impeachment accused Paxton of bribery and because he benefited from Nate Paul's employment of a woman whom Paxton was having an extramarital affair. The Senate voted along party lines to acquit Paxton of the allegation. Paxton's legal team downplayed the relevance of the affair. Well, imagine if we impeached everybody here in Austin that had an affair. Paxton's lead attorney, Tony Busby, said during the trial, we'd be impeaching for the next 100 years, wouldn't we? Now, obviously, the ad's been making its way around the state. A lot of people have seen it. To me, this does show that Phelan's a little bit worried. that Phelan's a little bit worried about his reelection chances down in Southeast Texas. Otherwise, you're not doing this ad. And Phelan never even mentions his opponent. He just talks about the Attorney General. And it's an odd ad just because of that. You know, he never mentions his opponent's name, never says, why would you trust my opponent when he's being backed by an adulterer? He doesn't even say that, doesn't even connect the two. It's more of just an anti-Paxton ad, which, again, if in that district, if Paxton's very popular, and the arguments that Covey and Paxton have been making are working against you, I'm not sure doubling down is the right move. I mean, it makes for one hell of an ad. You got a lot of people talking, that's for sure. But I don't know if this is an act of desperation or if this is just, we're going to go out guns a-blazing here. Who knows? But it wouldn't surprise me if we see an ad featuring Ken Paxton coming out at some point. 806-680-2790. You can send in your thoughts on the text line. Rick in Lubbock, when people are not up to speed on candidates, they tend to vote for the names they recognize. Thank God they vote. I just wish they'd do some research before they cast a ballot. That from Rick. That's why we try to have on as many candidates as want to appear on the show, and we put those interviews up on the podcast so people can go back and listen. And I think that listen, you should absolutely. I've never been somebody who thinks everyone needs to vote. I think educated people need to vote. I think that doesn't mean you have to have a college degree or a high school degree. I just know what you're talking about. Know who you're going to vote for when you go and vote. And that goes all the way from if you're voting for a state Senate race, all the way down to some of these judicial races. There are a lot of times where people will go in, they have no idea who some of these judicial candidates are, and they just, they just vote for the first person or for a name they think they know. And that's the worst way to elect somebody. When we come back, your phone calls, your text messages, and much more on the Chad Hasty Show.
Oh, yeah.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Coming up on the Wednesday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, continuing to look at the fallout after Senate Republicans learned that people don't want a nonsense immigration bill that doesn't do what it says it does. Plus, Clay?
We'll dive right into the continued lawfare and how absolutely insane it is. Plus, it'll be the eve of me giving you the greatest Super Bowl picks of all time. Come hang.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, tomorrow morning at 11.
There will be one less birthday party to celebrate today. One less coffee date with a friend today. One less family dinner today. Because there will be one less motorcycle rider on the road today. On average, a motorcyclist is killed on Texas roads every day. When you're behind the wheel, obey the speed limit and be extra careful at intersections. Let's start turning that one less into one more. Please share the road and look twice for motorcycles. There's a life riding on it. A message from TxDOT.
Show, Saturdays from 11 to 1 on News Talk, KFYO.
All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. You can send in your thoughts on the text line, 806-680-2790. Let us know your favorite Super Bowl foods. What do you all have in front of you while watching the big game, and who you're rooting for in this year's game. Let's see. Mark in California says, I'm not a big football guy, but always watch the Super Bowl with lots of dips, chips, cheese, crackers, summer sausage. You get the idea. Lots of good snacks. I like that. It's lots of good snacks. A buffet of snacks. Headline from the Texas Tribune, Patrick Svitek with the story, once hesitant Texas Republicans have united behind Trump once again. Less than a year ago, Trump's political strength was waning among Texas Republicans. He was being blamed for an underwhelming midterm election, facing mounting legal problems. Many prominent Texas Republicans were hesitating to endorse his comeback bid, but not all of them. U.S. Representative Wesley Hunt of Houston endorsed Trump in a statement sent out to reporters before Trump had even finished his November 2022 speech at Mar-a-Lago, announcing his campaign to take back the White House. Loyalty was Hunt's main motivator. Said in an interview with the Tribune, Trump backed him both his 2020 and 2022 primaries. Perhaps more importantly, his constituents wanted President Trump, but it wasn't even close. What happened next in Texas is much like what happened everywhere else. Republican officials started in 2023 to open up to a Trump alternative, but ultimately came around as DeSantis underwhelmed and Trump appeared increasingly inevitable. Those endorsements, their order and intensity, could prove to be consequential for those Republicans in the country's largest red state. Famously transactional president and his allies look to the future. Hunt said of Trump's Texas endorsers in recent months, they're a complete joke. If you're endorsing President Trump by the time he's up 60 points, you're not a serious person. Well, listen, I will say that they're probably, they were waiting. They were probably hoping somebody else would pop up and take the lead. But at least they're not endorsing Nikki Haley. You know, she's still out there. While polls once showed Trump and DeSantis tied in Texas, they now suggest the primary is all but over here. A survey released last month by the University of Houston found Trump leading the former South Carolina governor, Nikki Haley, 80% to 19%, with just 1% undecided. You think we have any of those, that 1%? You think we have any of the 1% out there who are undecided? I'd love to hear from someone who's undecided. And just hear your reasoning why you're undecided between Trump and Nikki Haley. We won't get mad at you or anything, but you can call in 1-800-687-0790. Your text in at 806-680-2790. And if you're really seriously undecided between Trump and Nikki Haley, you just don't know who to go with, I'd love to hear your reasoning behind that. I have to say that's surprising that 1%'s there. It's a sweet vindication for Trump's earliest backers in Texas. Let's see, perhaps most revealing is the Texas endorsement came shortly after Trump won the New Hampshire primary last month. 2 minutes after NBC projected Trump the winner, U.S. Senator John Cornyn took to X, formerly known as Twitter, to lend his support. Quote, "I've seen enough," Cornyn said. Cornyn has spent much of 2023 expressing interest in a post-Trump direction for the GOP, saying he did not plan to endorse in the primary regardless. Cornyn even said in May that he thought Trump's time had passed him by. But Trump's vanquishing of the primary field appeared to sway Cornyn, who also has his own political considerations. Well, that's what it's all about. Cornyn has to every Republican has to get on board. If you're an elected Republican, you've got to get on board because Trump's going to be the nominee. And really, every Republican voter should get on board. Even if you're hesitant, even if you're like, oh, I don't know. You got to get on board with them. When we come back, we'll visit with Brandon Arnold, the National Taxpayers Union. We'll also get into some other election discussion in the final hour of the program. Stay tuned.
The Chad Hasty Show, a presentation of the Texas Town Square Media Network. The views and opinions expressed during the Chad Hasty Show are not necessarily the views of this station staff, management, advertisers, or Town Square Media. Broadcasting from the great state of Texas, this is the Chad Hasty Show. News and views with a Lone Star perspective. You can sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Or call in at 1-800-687-0790. Now, here's Chad Hasty.
All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Appreciate you tuning in today. Got quite a bit to get into. You can send in your thoughts on the text line. At 806-680-2790. And joining us on the phones right now from the executive vice president of the National Taxpayers Union, Brandon Arnold, joining us here on the Chad Hasty Show. Brandon, welcome to the show. How are you doing this evening?
Doing great, Chad. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell folks before we get into some of the ESG topics that we wanted to get into today. Just kind of tell folks a little bit about the organization, the National Taxpayers Union.
Yeah, National Taxpayers Union. We believe that taxes should be lower, the government should be smaller at all levels, and it should be more responsive to American taxpayers. So we work at the federal level in Washington, D.C., at the state level and state capitals all across the country to serve as a taxpayer's lobbyist, to try to represent the interests of taxpayers before legislators and before administrative agencies, and make sure your voice is heard in state capitals and the nation's capital.
Well, I know that that y'all have been taking a look at some of the, I guess we could say some of the ESG investing and the ESG movement that is out there. For those who may not know exactly what ESG is, kind of define that for our listeners.
Sure. It stands for environmental and social governance. And essentially what it means is pursuing what is oftentimes left-wing ideas, environmental goals, trying to reduce carbon emissions, for instance, social goals, sometimes pushing a variety of different social interests. Again, these tend to be left-wing oriented goals. And we've seen that pop up at the corporate levels. Definitely certain corporate entities are launching these initiatives, and we see this in financial institutions offering ESG investment options. So if you want to support these left-leaning causes, you can invest in companies or in interests that advocate those particular goals. But where I start getting concerned about this is where we see governments engaging in ESG actions, and that can happen on both the left and on the right. And I think the response from the left is unacceptable, but the kind of counter response has overshot the mark in many instances on the right.
So what has been the response by some on the right, and why is it off the mark in your opinion?
Yeah, so what I think the state government, or federal government for that matter, but mostly what we're talking about when we're talking about ESG investing is state governments. What state governments ought to do is deliver the services that are necessary, the core government services that are necessary at as low a cost as they possibly can, assuming that they're hitting, quality metrics, reasonable quality metrics there. And what has happened on the right is kind of in a response to some lousy policies that we've seen out of California and other blue states. They've divested their pension funds in certain instances from tobacco companies. They don't like tobacco. That's fine. They've kicked them out of their pension funds. They can't. The pension funds can't invest in any stocks related to tobacco. And that costs pensioners. It costs them billions of dollars in the case of California. And now what we're seeing on the right in states, including Texas, but many others, Oklahoma, New Hampshire, many other states that are more red in nature, is they're like, we're not going to do business with any financial institution or other company that does anything related to ESG. And this is just the other side of that same coin that we're seeing in California and Massachusetts and other states. It's saying we're going to apply this ideological litmus test to what our state government does. And I think that exceeds the scope of what state governments ought to be doing. And, of course, it's accompanied with a higher price tag, because when you kick financial institutions, for instance, out of bond markets, you have fewer people that are fewer companies that are bidding on these bonds, and you end up raising costs on taxpayers, and taxpayers ended up getting caught in the middle of this ESG war.
What do you hear from folks who, maybe on the right, who say, well, wait a minute, these companies are doing harm to what we believe in, and ultimately some of the things that they may pursue would cause harm to the economy in Texas or in the United States, and so we're just trying to look out for our policies that we endorse here.
Yeah, I totally understand where those folks are coming from, and I get frustrated with some companies as well. But I think the state government, when they start fighting these battles on behalf of taxpayers, first of all, different taxpayers are going to have different viewpoints. So to come forward and say Austin is going to decide which are acceptable companies to work with and which aren't, I think is a huge litigious mess, because if somebody says, well, we rejected a loan application from a gun retailer, well, did they do so because they are engaging in some sort of ESG activity where they were boycotting any gun businesses, or are they doing so because the credit scores and the creditworthiness wasn't high enough standards to issue that debt or that loan? We don't know, so that can easily turn into this administrative, legal, bureaucratic battle that I don't really want to see government go down. But more broadly, I think when individuals get frustrated with companies, the most effective tool they have is their wallet, not their legislator. And we saw this most notably when Bud Light launched this campaign. They had a transgender individual as part of their ad campaign. There was enormous boycotts. And if you went into a liquor store during that period, you would see plenty of Bud Light on the shelves and very little Miller Lite, Coors Light, other products not part of the Anheuser-Busch family that were not available. So voters stepped up, taxpayers stepped up and said, we don't like this. And guess what? Anheuser-Busch had to do a major course correction afterwards. Yeah. That was way more effective than what state governments can do.
Do you get worried about the slippery slope of, voters may like what the government is doing now when it comes to some of the anti-ESG stuff, but if, let's say the state were to ever turn blue, and you have the history of saying, okay, we're going to go against companies that don't believe in what we believe as a government, then you would see the liberal side of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we don't want our investment decisions ping-ponging based on who happens to be in control in Austin or in Sacramento or Annapolis or whatever state capital. You don't want that swinging back and forth, because when you do, you're going to have huge disruptions in government services. You're going to have to bid out contracts over and over again. Again, it becomes an ideological litmus test of who we like, who we don't like, instead of what we ought to be focusing on, who can deliver quality services, quality financial products to taxpayers at the lowest reasonable cost. That is the business that our government ought to be in. And then us as individuals, listen, there are plenty of organizations that you can participate in. There are coordinated efforts. You can get your buddies on Facebook or Twitter or Truth or wherever and say, listen, this company is doing ridiculous things and they're doing all these activities, investing in organizations that we fundamentally disagree with. We're not going to do business with them. And I think that is more reasonable. I think that is more American than having the government, whether it's the federal government or the state government, determining what things we like and what things we don't like.
Visiting with Brandon Arnold with the National Taxpayers Union. Brandon, where can people find more of the work that you guys do and kind of keep along with all the different things that you guys are taking a look at?
Yeah, NTU, National Taxpayers Union, NTU.org is our website. We're certainly on all the socials, YouTube. We have plenty of videos out there. You can watch, you can comment, you can tell me I'm brilliant, you can tell me I'm an idiot, whatever you'd like. We'd love to hear your comments. And Twitter, Facebook, you name it, we're out there.
All right, Brandon, always a pleasure visiting with you. Appreciate your time today, and I'm sure we'll visit again down the road.
Thanks so much, Chad. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's Brandon Arnold with the National Taxpayers Union. You can visit their website, get more information on their website and also on social media. I like that where he said, you can agree. You can get in a little debates on social media. I like that when you have people who are willing to respond to folks. Let's see some textures. I got just a handful of text as we wrapped up the last hour and people are shocked. I told you this was going to happen. That the House failed in their impeachment attempt against the Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas. I told you that it wasn't going to work out. That you were not going to have enough Republicans that would have the spine to go along with this. And guess what? There weren't enough Republicans with a spine to go along with it. A dramatic setback. House Republicans failed Tuesday to impeach the Homeland Security Secretary, Alejandro Mayorkas, forced to shelve a high-profile priority for now after a few GOP lawmakers refused to go along with the party's plan. The stunning roll call fell just a few votes short of impeaching Mayorkas, stalling the Republicans' drive to punish the administration over its handling of the U.S.-Mexico border. With Democrats united against the charges, Republicans needed almost every vote from their slim majority to approve the articles of impeachment. The House likely to revisit plans to impeach Mayorkas, but the next steps are highly uncertain. Again, when the Democrats want to impeach someone, when the Democrats really want to go after somebody, they unite, they stick together. Republicans, not so much. Not so much. 806-680-2790. You can call in 1-800-687-0790. We'll be right back.
The Chad Hasty Show can be heard all over West Texas, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Tune in on News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO in Lubbock, News Talk 940 in Amarillo, News Talk 94.7 and 1470 KYYW in Abilene, and in Wichita Falls on News Talk 96.3 and 1290. The Chad Hasty Show. Make it a part of your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Coming up on the Wednesday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, continuing to look at the fallout after Senate Republicans learned that people don't want a nonsense immigration bill that doesn't do what it says it does. Plus, Clay?
We'll dive right into the continued lawfare and how absolutely insane it is. Plus, it'll be the eve of me giving you the greatest Super Bowl picks of all time. Come hang.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. Tomorrow morning at 11.
Travis, Sean Hannity, and Chad Hasty. Weekdays on News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO.
All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show, where we've been talking about all types of issues. A lot of political news out there today. Also asking who do you think will win the Super Bowl? A lot of Chiefs fans out there, 49er fans too, or at least people saying who's going to win the game. Let's see, also asking you what your Super Bowl food will be. What is the ultimate snack item that you will have at your Super Bowl watch party? By the way, the House, in their failed impeachment attempt against the Homeland Security Secretary, the no votes, Ken Buck out of Colorado, Tom McClintock out of California, and Mike Gallagher out of Wisconsin. Nick, come on. Wisconsin? Really, Nick? Do you know who he is? No? Okay. See, here's what we need to do. If I'm Abbott, the next buses that I send are going to the districts where Tom McClintock is elected, I sent another bus to Ken Buck's district and another bus to Mike Gallagher. I don't know if any illegal immigrants want to go to Wisconsin or not. We might be surprised. Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. But that's where the next 3 buses need to go. To those 3 congressional districts, and one in California, one in Colorado, one in Wisconsin. That's what needs to happen. 806-680-2790. You can send in your thoughts on the text line, weigh in on any of the topics that we've been getting into today. Again, no one at all should be surprised. Let's see. Congressman Jody Arrington has a release out. I am convinced Secretary Mayorkas' willful and continuous disregard for the laws of our land and his breach of public trust resulting in serious and systemic injury to our society represent not only a constitutional basis, but a sacred obligation to impeach. Impeaching Secretary Mayorkas is the right and responsible thing to do in faithfulness to the Constitution, the protection of the American people, and in the defense of the sovereignty of the United States of America. That from Congressman Jody Arrington, who continues to do a great job in Washington, D.C. He just keeps doing a fantastic job in Washington. Now, there are going to be some other border news that's out there. There are going to be, I believe it's 21 House Republicans. I believe that's right. Yeah, 21 or 22 House Republicans will be in Eagle Pass this Thursday for a border security briefing. And there was a release earlier stated that the governor may have an announcement during that time. Now, included on that list of folks who will be going to the border, that includes State Representative Dustin Burrows, who Abbott has endorsed. Burrows just has a ton of endorsements in his race for re-election. And Abbott being one of those endorsements. And so Burrows will be traveling to the border for that either announcement or briefing or a little bit of both. 806-680-2790. You can get in, sound off on any of the topics that we've gotten into today. Texter on the app chat, David weighing in, saying that he's going to be rooting for the Chiefs during the Super Bowl. But at the same time, I don't care that much. If it's not the Cowboys, I still am rooting for Mahomes because I'm a Tech grad. Okay, well, there you go. Just a poor Cowboys fan looking for a bandwagon to jump on. I get it. It's okay. I get it. I'm not a Cowboys fan. I've been a Cowboys fan for a long time. My entire life, I've been a Cowboys fan. You know, it's one of those where it'd be a lot of fun. A lot of fun to see the Cowboys back in a Super Bowl, but probably won't happen anytime soon. 806-680-2790. Almost 18 million Texans registered to vote now in the March 5th primary. Doesn't mean they'll all show up, but they're at least registered. More and more people registering to vote. Yeah, Monday was the cutoff for those who could register to vote. How about this? Credit card and auto loan delinquencies are back. The Bidenomics really helping out the American people. Spending by American consumers has kept the economy humming at an unexpectedly fast clip over the past year. The dark side is that credit card and auto loan delinquencies are surging. Remember over the last couple of weeks, you've seen all these stories about how the economy is going great. No, it's just people spending money they don't have. Both auto loans and credit cards have seen a particular worsening of new delinquencies, with transition rates now above pre-pandemic levels. The serious delinquency rate, meaning loans that are more than 90 days overdue for credit cards, has jumped to 6.4%, up from a 4% a year earlier. For auto loans, it's increased from 2.2% to 2.7%. High inflation that has haunted the economy throughout Biden's tenure in the White House playing a role. Prices of motor vehicles soaring, inflation, and inflating the auto loan balances. The average amount borrowed on a car loan jumped 11% in 2021 and another 10% in 2022. But the media says the economy's right. The economy's fantastic. Sure it is. We'll be right back.
Call in to the Chad Hasty Show at 1-800-687-0790. The Chad Hasty Show, broadcasting on the Texas Town Square Media Network. Today's markets from the Texas Department of Ag.
Howdy, neighbors. Texas feeder catalogs reporting prices steady to $10 higher. Cattle futures also up. February live cattle futures up $3.28, close at $183 a hundred. March feeder cattle futures up $3.92 to close at $246.67. March cotton futures up half a point, close at $87.54. March wheat futures up 4 pennies, close at $6.18 a bushel. March corn down 4 cents, close at $4.39. And March soybean futures up 3 pennies, close at $11.99 a bushel. March soybean meal futures down $2.30, close at $358.80 per ton. February Class B milk futures down 9 cents, close at $16.26 a hundred. March crude oil futures up 53 cents, close at $73.31 per barrel, and the Dow Jones was up 141 points, close at 38,521. And that's market roundup from the Texas Department of Agriculture. I'm your commissioner, Sid Miller, and remember, friends, Texas agriculture matters. So,
this is the news and talk of West Texas. News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO. Don't you forget about Chad at Chad Hasty Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and on your radio. Now back to the Chad Hasty Show.
All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Appreciate you being out there. Gary in Alaska, it's genius, Chad. Send the buses to the no-vote states. Illegals shouldn't get a choice or they're dropped off. They enter our country illegally. Also, new articles should be drafted immediately. They actually do have a choice. They're not just rounded up. The media would have you think that what mean old Greg Abbott is down on the border just rounding up illegals, throwing them on buses and shipping them out. What actually happens is that these are folks who want to get on buses and go where the state is sending them. They want to go to New York. I mean, this is, on one hand, this is why you have some people who are against this idea of busing the illegals to these different places. It's honestly where they want to go. They don't want to stay in Texas. They want to go to Washington, D.C. They want to go to New York City. They want to go to California. They don't want to stay in Texas. They want to go to some other places. Now, some do want to stay in Texas. And so they stay here. They're not put on buses and just, sit. I've heard this argument that Texas is involved in human trade. No, No, these people are interviewed and they're asked if they want to go to Chicago or New York City or wherever whatever their final destination may be. And that's why, listen, I love the idea. I like what Abbott's doing, but I'm not someone who is just giddy about it because at the end of the day, you're just kind of helping people out. Sure, you're punishing some of the blue states, yes, but you're also helping out some of the illegals who want to get to those places anyway. So it's good, but it's not like the greatest thing in the world. But, they're not just throwing people on buses and going, all right, where do we go today? They're not doing that. And again, they're going to mainly sanctuary cities, places that have said before that they're fine with illegal immigrants. And they still are. They're just being overrun right now. They don't like that. They would much rather South Texas be overrun. They would much rather Arizona be overrun. I've said numerous times, I would not want to be homeless in Texas. I really want to be, as much as I love West Texas, I don't want to be homeless here. If God forbid, if I were ever homeless, and if I were one of these that was like chronically homeless or, what is it where you just, this is your way of life. Nick, you've seen those who, it's their way of life. They want to be homeless. There's a massive group of homeless people who, this is kind of what they want to do. I would never want to be homeless or, be illegal here in Texas and not have a place to go. I would much rather go to California where you can get everything for free. Got some good weather. You're on the beach. It's good. If I didn't have a house, if I crossed the country illegally, or if I was homeless, I want to go to California. I do not want to be in Texas. I want to go to California. 806-680-2790. You can send in your thoughts on the text line. We talked about some of the Republicans coming out and saying that it's time for McConnell to go. It's beyond time for new leadership. It's beyond time for that to happen. Let's see, nearly 68 million Americans are expected to bet on the Super Bowl. A record number of nearly 68 million Americans expected to bet on the Super Bowl this coming Sunday. That, according to the American Gaming Association, estimated that 67.8 million American adults are planning on placing bets on the Super Bowl between the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers, according to a new survey. Super Bowl will be played at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. First time the venue has hosted the big game. The number of Americans planning on betting on next week's game up 35% from 2023. Overall, those placing bets are expected to wager an estimated $23.1 billion. That's up from $16 billion last year. The jump in likely Super Bowl wagers comes as legal sports betting has become more widespread throughout the U.S. after a 2018 Supreme Court ruling struck down a law banning the practice. According to the AGA, 38 states and the District of Columbia have allowed some form of sports betting, with 29 of those states allowing wagering online. As the Super Bowl comes to Las Vegas for the first time, this year's record interest in wagering marks a full circle moment for the U.S. gaming industry, said AGA President and CEO Bill Miller in a statement. They estimated that 42.7 million Americans plan to place a traditional sports wager online at a retail sports book or with a bookie. AGA noted that Americans are planning to shift to the legal market of sports betting. An estimated 28.7 million adults planning to place online bets using a legal U.S. sports book. Respondents were split on which team to back for the Super Bowl. 47% said they would likely bet on the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, while 44% backing the 49ers. So people are placing their bets, ready to make a little bit of money. A survey conducted by Morning Consult, it was conducted between January 30th and February 1 of 2,204 adults. So people want to make some money off of this year's big game. 806. Now, you won't be able to do that in Texas, though, because while you can play the lottery in Texas, if you try to do a little sports betting, that's just wrong. But betting on the lottery, that's okay. Nothing wrong with that at all. Joe Biden has responded to Donald Trump's call for an immediate presidential debate. Biden responded to the former president's challenge to an immediate debate on Monday. Trump had issued the challenge during a radio appearance. Trump said, "I'd like to debate him now because we should have a debate. We should debate for the good of the country." Biden was asked about Trump's comments later in the day while campaigning in Nevada. Biden said immediately, "Well, if I were him, I'd want to debate me too. He's got nothing else to do." What does that mean? I think Joe was confused. If I were him, I'd want to debate me too. He's got nothing else to do. Is that supposed to be like, oh dang, Biden burn? Oh, you really got him on that one, Joe. With Trump holding a commanding lead in the GOP primary, the outlook for a general election debate is uncertain. The Republican National Committee withdrew from the Commission on Presidential Debates in 2022, and Trump himself has called the organization corrupt. Trump said they're totally corrupt, they're totally Democrat-leaning. That's being nice when I use the word leaning, Trump said in December. According to NBC News, they're totally corrupt, they're terrible. With that being said, I would do 20 debates, even if it was organized by them. I'll do as many debates as they want. I'll do a debate every night with this guy, but he'll never show up to a debate. Now, of course, Trump never showed up to any of the GOP debates. One of the reasons why, according to his campaign, is that he was so far ahead, which is true. The debate commission has scheduled 3 general election debates, though Trump nor Biden have agreed to them yet. The debate scheduled for September 16th at Texas State University, October 1st at Virginia State University, and October 9th at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. The question is, will Joe actually show up? Will Joe actually show up and debate Donald Trump? Will that happen? And if he does show up, how many drugs is he on to make him appear alert? That's going to be one of the big questions, because he's got to be on something. He's going to have to be on something if he does show up to debate Trump. I think there will be at least one debate. I don't know about any more than that, but I think there will be at least one. 806-680-2790. Another texter weighing in. Rest in peace. Toby Keith was a true American who was not afraid to stand up for our country. Like the freeloaders that don't respect our country and military. We want to live in a free country. Yeah, Toby Keith, obviously a great songwriter, singer, and had very patriotic music. Was a big patriot for our country. Passing away today. Very sad news. 806-680-2790. When we come back, we'll begin to wrap things up.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Coming up on the Wednesday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, continuing to look at the fallout after Senate Republicans learned that people don't want a nonsense immigration bill that doesn't do what it says it does. Plus, Clay?
We'll dive right into the continued lawfare and how absolutely insane it is. Plus, it'll be the eve of me giving you the greatest Super Bowl picks of all time. Come hang.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. Tomorrow morning at 11.
I answered the call. Together, we fought for our nation and its people. And even though I no longer wear the uniform, I am still a Marine. My service has come full circle. I will continue to support my country and my community. Then and now, Semper Fidelis remains my promise. Always faithful, always Marine.
LBK, weekday mornings at 6 on KFYO.
Back on the Chad Hasty Show as we begin to wrap things up. Steve Evans will be in tomorrow. I've got a flight to catch to Vegas tomorrow. And, boy, that's going to be crazy the next few days. It's going to be a little crazy in Las Vegas, but I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. I am not actually going to the game. For those who are wondering, because I've gotten a lot of, hey, are you actually going to the game? Are you going to the game and stuff? Unless I get really, really lucky and I'm just like standing outside the stadium going, please. Maybe I could try to do like a media credential type thing, but I'm pretty sure I had to apply for that like a year or two ago. Nick's over there laughing, like he's going, you got no shot. You got nothing. There's no way you get in. I don't know. Look, here's part of my plan, okay, Nick? Shaq is having a party. And we may go to the Shaq party. If I can get in good with Shaq, I think he could get me into the game. You see? So, the plan is go to Vegas, check, done. Become best friends with Shaquille O'Neal. Gonna work on that. Gotta work on that one. Also have to get my way into the party where Shaq is at. Gonna work on that. That plan's under construction right now. Then get my new best friend, Shaquille O'Neal, to get me into the Super Bowl. And I don't even know if he's going to the Super Bowl. He might be going, but I have no idea. So I think this plan could work. It's not the worst plan in the world, but it's something. It's doable. It's workable. A texter, if Joe debates Trump, they'll impose so many rules and stipulations around the debate to protect Biden. It won't even look like a debate. Well, none of the debates look like a real debate. I mean, it's, here, quick, a minute, get a campaign promise out there, real quick, go. I mean, can you imagine like a real debate between Trump and Biden where it lasted hours and hours and hours, there was no break between it, and you just had the moderator go, what do you two think about Social Security? Go. And they actually had to talk about it for an hour? Yeah. But no, there will be protections. You got to protect Joe. If you're the news media, you got to do it. My idea is the plot of a bad 80s movie. How many 80s movies have you actually seen? Because one, that's what I was thinking. I mean, you're like the last person who should come to me and go, that's a plot of a really bad movie. When you don't see movies, you haven't seen any good movies at all pre-2015. I'm going to say pre-2015, you haven't seen any good movies.
I did. I watched the first about 5 minutes of Gremlins.
First 5 minutes of it. What happened to the rest of the movie?
I was gone. I don't know. I left.
You left.
Yeah,
you just walked away.
I didn't finish. It was playing. I was at a location, and it was playing like on a TV, kind of like a dentist office.
That doesn't count.
I was like, hey, I know these little fellas. I know what movie this is, so I watched a couple minutes of it, and that was it.
Yeah.
I did see Braveheart though. I bring that up every time because
okay, you've seen Braveheart, so you've seen one. You've seen one good movie.
I told you I've seen one. Yeah, yeah.
So my plot is not as good as Braveheart, is what you're saying.
If this weekend becomes a fully produced movie, many people would watch it, but I'm afraid it would fall into
Wolfpack.
I don't know what that is.
Oh my gosh.
It would be very bad. You'd have to get Shaquille O'Neal or someone who looks just like him.
Yeah. No one looks like Shaq.
Exactly. So there's a lot of, but the plot is good.
Cletus and Lubbock, Chad, your Super Bowl plan is less shaky than the border bill. Thank you. It's better than the border bill. Yes. Again, meet Shaq, become best friends, get into the game. That's it. And I'm a nice guy. I'd like to think I'm a nice guy. I can become friends with a lot of people. Shaq seems like a nice guy. I'm just saying. Here's what I'm going to do, Nick. I'm going to send you a selfie of me and Shaq hanging out. And you're going to have to deal with it. Steve Evans is in tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your week. Stay safe. Stay healthy. God bless you all. We'll see you later.
The Chad Hasty Show, a presentation of the Texas Town Square Media Network. The views and opinions expressed during the Chad Hasty Show are not necessarily the views of this station staff, management, advertisers, or Town Square Media.